Long before the world was carved into borders, before kings and empires rose from the dust, there was a time when spirits danced among mortals. In this era, where myths breathed and legends walked, a story echoed across the wind of a mask unlike any other. This was not just any mask carved by man for war or ceremony. No. This mask was born from the tears of the gods, shaped from the wood of the last tree in the garden of Naomi, and blessed by Abasi, the god of balance and truth. The mask bore no eye holes, for it did not need to see. It knew. It saw into the very soul of whoever stood before it, and it chose only those whose hearts were pure and whose burdens were heaviest. It had chosen warlords, peasants, women, orphans, and healers, never for their strength, always for their inner light. And when it did, it gave them power. Not power to rule, but to serve. Not to conquer, but to protect. And yet, for every soul it blessed, a shadow stirred. For there were those who sought the mask not to heal, but to command. As centuries passed, the mask disappeared. Some said it was lost. Others said it was waiting. But the elders of Nyoka village whispered something different. The mask sleeps until the world needs it again, and need it. The world would. Far from the thrones of kings and beyond the reach of great cities, Nyoka was a quiet village surrounded by sacred forests and rolling hills. Life was simple. Water came from the stream, food from the soil, wisdom from the old. And yet, even in such simplicity, sorrow found a home. There lived a boy, no older than 16 reigns, whose name was Zumo. He was not like the other children. While others played with reed balls and chased butterflies, Zumo carried water from dawn until dusk, tended the goats, and cared for the village healer, an old woman with failing sight and failing memory. He never complained, not even when the boys mocked him, not when the healer forgot his name, not when his stomach growled louder than the goats he fed. He smiled, but behind that smile, Zumo carried grief deeper than the river, and heavier than the mountains. His parents had been taken by the fever. His brother lost to the mines in the east, his dreams buried with them, yet every morning he rose. Every evening he prayed, not for riches, not for power, but simply for the strength to make it one more day. It is often said in Nyoka that those who suffer in silence are the ones the spirits hear the loudest. And one evening, as the sky turned gold and the birds sang their final songs, something ancient stirred beneath the roots of the forest. The mask had opened its eyes again, and it had seen Zumo. Zumo woke before the sun, as he always did, his hands rough and calloused from years of labor. The morning air was crisp, and the faint mist clung to the ground like memories that refused to fade. He moved silently through the village, drawing water from the stream and refilling the healer's clay jugs. The healer, Mama Nia, sat curled on a woven mat, her milky eyes closed, but not asleep. Zumo, she murmured, though she often confused his name with others. The wind speaks louder today. Zumo looked at her with curiosity. What is it saying, Mama Nia? She tilted her head. That something old is waking. Something that has been waiting ... for a boy like you. Zumo smiled, brushing it off as another one of her riddles. But all day, her words clung to him like a second skin. Later that afternoon, he wandered near the edge of the sacred forest to collect firewood. There, nestled in the gnarled roots of an ancient baobab tree, he noticed something unusual. A patch of ground unnaturally cleared, the soil beneath unnaturally dark. Curious, he knelt and brushed the dirt aside. His fingers struck something solid. Wood. He dug further and unearthed a small, carved box, covered in strange symbols that shimmered faintly in the light. His heart pounded as he slowly opened it. Inside was a rolled piece of hide, old and cracked. but still intact. It bore a map, or at least what resembled one. The lines swirled like rivers, led through jagged mountains and forests drawn with intricate care. But it was the image at the center that took his breath away. A mask, glowing, radiant, watching. Zumo felt a jolt run through his body, as though the mask was looking back at him through the parchment. That night, he couldn't sleep. The image haunted his dreams. But they weren't just dreams, they were visions. He stood before the mask in a clearing, bathed in moonlight. A voice echoed, "Only the burdened may wear me. Only the pure may keep me." Zumo awoke, drenched in sweat. He clutched the hide to his chest. The forest no longer felt distant. It was calling. The path was waiting. He didn't know where it led. But for the first time in his life, he felt something more powerful than sorrow. He felt purpose. And so, before the sun rose again, Zumo packed a satchel with water, dried roots, and mamanias. Blessings. He slipped quietly past the village borders and stepped into the sacred forest, where roots curled like ancient fingers and the wind whispered secrets. Zumo began his journey. He didn't know he had already been chosen. Asterisk, asterisk, the sacred forest loomed like a cathedral of green and gold, its canopies swallowing light, its floor blanketed in silence. Each step Zumo took was cushioned by moss, yet echoed like a drumbeat in his chest. He gripped the rolled hide tightly, its weight strangely comforting, as if the mask itself pulsed through the parchment. Birds with feathers like burning embers flitted between the trees. Strange flowers, glowing softly, leaned toward him as he passed. The forest was alive, not just with sound, but with watching. Zumo could feel eyes on him, curious, ancient, and patient. For hours he wandered, uncertain of his path, but driven by something unseen. The map offered no scale, no directions, just symbols and curves, like a song only the soul could follow. As dusk began to fall, a sudden rustle broke the calm. Zumo froze. From the ferns emerged a chameleon, larger than any he had ever seen. Eyes rotated independently, studying him, its skin shifting between colors like ripples on a pond. It spoke Zumo. The boy stepped back in shock. You know my name." The chameleon tilted its head. "Names carry weight in this forest. Yours is heavy. You carry more than most. That is why you were called." "Called by what?" "The mask." The chameleon's tail curled thoughtfully. "The mask does not call. It remembers. It chooses. It waits, and it watches. You were chosen because you give even when you have nothing left." Zumo stared, uncertain whether to trust his eyes or his ears. "Are you a spirit?" "I am a guide," the chameleon replied, "but only for those who walk in truth. Come, there are trials ahead, and each one will weigh your soul." As they walked together through the twilight, the forest shifted. Trees seemed to lean in, listening. Roots twisted into new paths. Shadows whispered Zumo's name. The first trial came as they reached a glade bathed in moonlight. At its center, a young girl wept beside a fallen antelope, its leg twisted and broken. Zumo approached gently. "Are you hurt?" The girl shook her head. "Not me. Her, my sister. She is our food. But now, we will starve." Zumo looked down at the creature, its breath shallow. He had nothing to offer but water and his own food, but he knelt, placing his satchel beside her. "Take this. It'll last you a few days. Find a healer in the foothills." The girl blinked. "But you will have nothing." Zumo smiled. "You have your sister. That is something worth more than anything I carry." The girl vanished. In her place stood a stone altar, and on it, a glowing feather. The chameleon nodded. "The first truth, compassion over survival. You passed, Zumo picked up the feather. It shimmered in his hand, then dissolved into his skin, filling him with warmth. The journey was far from over, but the path was beginning to light itself, one trial at a time, and the mask was watching. The deeper Zumo ventured into the sacred forest, the more it felt like stepping through layers of time. The air thickened with magic and memory. Songs of old whispered through the rustling leaves, and the trees grew older, taller, with trunks. Twisted by the years, the chameleon perched lazily on Zumo's shoulder, occasionally murmured riddles and stories, each one more cryptic than the last. Zumo listened, absorbing what he could. He knew everything in this forest had meaning, even if the truth lay hidden. They came upon a hill shaped like a sleeping lion. The map's lines converged at its peak. Carved into its side was a doorknob of wood or stone, but of woven vines and sunlight. It opened as they approached, without a touch. Beyond it was a cavern glowing with soft blue light. Crystals jutted from the walls, casting shimmering reflections. In the center hovered the mask. It was smaller than Zumo had imagined, but no less awe-inspiring. Carved from dark, ancient wood, its surface was etched with tribal runes. Golden lines ran like veins across its surface, pulsing gently with a heartbeat of their own. No eyes, just presence. Zumo stepped forward, but the chameleon stopped him. You must face your truth before you may touch it. Suddenly, the cavern vanished. Zumo stood in a vision his old home, the day the fever took his parents. He watched himself, smaller, trembling, holding their hands as their skin turned cold. He saw his brother leaving for the mines, promising to return with riches. He never did. He saw himself praying alone in the dark, whispering, "Why not me?" A voice echoed from the void. Asterisk, why do you still carry them? Zumo clenched his fists, because forgetting would be a betrayal. Asterisk, then why do you seek power? Zumo knelt, not to punish, not to change the past, but to protect others from knowing. This pain, light surged. The cavern returned. The mask floated toward him. You are known. You are weighed. You are chosen. It pressed gently against his face, not needing straps. It merged with his skin, not painfully, but with warmth and acceptance. The golden runes glowed brighter, and Zumo felt as if the forest itself had entered his spirit. He opened his eyes, and saw everything. The layers of the forest, the souls of animals, the sadness of the land, the hope in every tree. The chameleon bowed. Now your true journey begins. But outside the forest, something else stirred. A man cloaked in shadow stood on the village edge, watching. His eyes burned with envy. He, too, had once searched for. The mask hand had been rejected. His name was Darrow, and now it would return for what he believed should have been his. Asterisk, Zumo's return to Nyoka village was not met with trumpets or cheers. The mask, still resting on his face, shimmered with soft light as he stepped beyond the forest's edge. Children playing near the goat pens stopped and stared. A woman dropped a basket of yams. The village elder gasped. Only Mama Nia smiled as if she had known all along. The forest has blessed you, she whispered when he knelt beside her. But blessings are heavier than curses, Zumo. Carry it wisely. The mask did not speak, but it guided. Through dreams, it whispered. Through visions, it showed Zumo what was broken wounds not just of the body, but of spirit. Within days, miracles followed him. He healed the lame with a touch. He found clean water where the wells had run dry. Crops that had withered under the sun began to sprout anew. Families once divided by years of grudges began to speak again. Zumo remained humble. He worked the fields, fetched water, and tended the old, just as he had before. But word of his deeds spread like wildfire, and soon strangers began to arrive. From nearby villages, then from distant lands. They came in search of healing, hope, or simply to witness the boy with the golden mask. Some brought gifts, others brought envy. Darrow watched from afar. He wore the robe of a traitor now and spoke honeyed words. But inside, his heart festered with bitterness. Years ago, he had sought the mask. He had performed the rituals, passed the trials, or so he thought. But the mask had remained silent. It should have been mine, he growled in his private tent. A child, a servant, ... a nobody. He began to plant seeds of doubt. Quiet conversations at the market. Rumors whispered over shared calabashes of palm wine. Isn't it strange, he said, how the boy returned with power only after disappearing into the forbidden woods? Have you noticed, he told another, that since the mask came, the rains haven't fallen. He gave gifts, salt, cloth, trinkets, always with a smile, always with a story. Soon, the whispers turned into questions. Questions into suspicion. Zumo felt it. The glances, the silence where once there was song. Even the children, once eager to follow him, now hesitated. He tried to explain. He showed kindness. He used his power only when needed, but the fear had already rooted itself. One night, the village council summoned him. Torches flickered as he entered the circle. Darrow stood among them, face calm. Elder Muntu, a man Zumo had once helped recover from a fever, cleared his throat. We are grateful for what you've done, he said, but there is concern. The mask, is it truly a gift from the spirits, or is it something darker? Zumo stepped forward, heart heavy. I have only ever used it to help, to heal. The mask chose me not because I wanted power, but because I needed to protect. Darrow raised a hand. Perhaps. But what if one day it chooses differently? What if it decides we are unworthy? Silence followed. Mama Nia's voice cut through. Fear is loud, but truth does not shout. But the council voted not to condemn, to observe, to restrict. Zumo was no longer to leave the village, no longer to use the mask unless in dire need. He nodded. But inside, sorrow bloomed. He returned to his hut, sat in silence. The mask pulsed faintly. You knew this would happen, he whispered. And in his dreams, the mask showed him a storm. Storm named Darrow. **** Night fell like a thick blanket over Nyoka village, but the air was restless. Something unspoken pulsed beneath the quiet of sleeping huts and crackling fire embers. In the shadows just beyond the boundary trees, Darrow stood watching. His cloak masked him in darkness. But not even the cloak could hide the ambition burning. In his eyes, he moved quietly through the outskirts of the village. Where those too poor or too proud to live close to the center made their homes. There, he found eager listeners, those who had lost crops despite Zumo's miracles, those whose illnesses had returned, those who felt forgotten. To some, he brings light. Darrow murmured to a cluster of men seated in a broken granary. To others, only deeper shadows. They grumbled. Darrow pressed on. You think it coincidence the mask chose a boy with no name, no family, that spirits speak to him and not your children? Why should he hold the power? By dawn, Darrow had gathered more than whispers. He had followers, angry ones, scared ones, ones ready to act. Meanwhile, Zumo awoke with a start. The mask still lay on the mat beside him, humming softly. Visions had come again, this time of fire, of a crowd shouting, of a figure in darkness holding something familiar. Mama Nia came to him as the sun rose. The spirits grow loud, child, she said. And when they speak so often, it means danger is close. Zumo nodded. I see the storm coming, but I don't know how to stop it. Maybe you don't, she said gently. Maybe you endure it. That day, under the full heat of the midday sun, Darrow made his move. He strode into the village square with confidence. A group of villagers behind him, armed not with weapons, but with anger and fear. They formed a half-circle around the central fire pit, calling out for the council. Zumo was summoned. He arrived quietly, the mask held in his hands, but not worn. He looked out across the people's faces he had healed, helped, comforted. Many could not meet his eyes. Darrow raised his voice. "We want the truth. Is this mask divine or cursed? And why should one boy wield its power when it belongs to all of us?" Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Zumo spoke and steady. "I never claimed the power as mine. The mask chose me. I have only ever acted to protect." Darrow stepped closer. "Then prove it. Remove the mask. Let another wear it." "Let me wear it." Gasps. Even the council members stiffened. Mama Nia's voice rang out. "It is not passed like cloth or coin. The mask chooses. Not us, but Darrow was. Ready? Then let it choose now." He shouted, and in one swift motion he lunged. His hands snatched the mask from Zumo's arms. For a heartbeat, the world froze. Darrow pressed the mask to his face. Nothing happened, then dash screams. The mask glowed red, its golden veins turning molten. Darrow staggered back, clutching his head. A burning howl tore from his throat as smoke rose from the edges of the mask, searing his skin. The crowd stepped back in horror. Zumo rushed forward, wrenching the mask from Darrow's face. It cooled instantly in his hands, returning to its golden glow. Darrow collapsed, unconscious, his face marked with glowing scars. The crowd fell silent. Elder Montu broke the stillness. "It is clear now. The mask chooses, and it has chosen Zumo." The people fell to their knees, not in worship, but in understanding. Zumo did not raise the mask above his head. He held it gently and said, "This is not power. This is purpose, and I carry it for all of us." In the days that followed Darrow's collapse, Nyoka village breathed a cautious sigh of relief. The mask's display had silenced the doubters, at least for now. Darrow lay resting under the watch of the village guards, his wounds glowing faintly, like embers that refused to cool. Zumo, now firmly seen as the mask's rightful bearer, resumed his quiet service. He mended broken roofs, helped deliver twins in the western huts, and sat for hours with widows who had no one left to listen. The villagers began to truly see him not as a mystery, but as one of their own. Still, unease lingered in Zumo's heart. Each night, his dreams grew heavier. The mask revealed flashes of a withered tree, lightning striking a mountain, and strange symbols etched into cave walls. He awoke each time with sweat beading on his brow. Mama Nea, sensing his burden, called him one morning to her hut. "There are powers even older than the mask," she warned, "and not all of them rest easy." "What am I supposed to do?" Zumo asked. She handed him an old bone pendant. "Go to the Shrine of Whispers. Speak your heart into the silence. Let the spirits decide what you need next." The shrine was 3 days' walk through tangled brush and forgotten trails. Zumo did not hesitate. With the mask secured in a satchel, he set off alone. On the second night, camped beside a river shaped like a serpent's spine, Zumo sensed he was being followed. The trees were too quiet, the air too still. He closed his eyes and let the mask guide him. Sight became spirit. In his mind, he saw shadows moving, not beasts, but men, 3 of them. Their auras were knotted with greed and confusion. He rose, placed the mask over his face, and waited. The attackers came just after moonrise, blades drawn. They were scavengers, likely sent by Darrow's allies, or drawn by rumor. Zumo did not fight them with fists. He raised a hand and whispered a word he didn't understand. The earth beneath their feet trembled. Vines shot up, curling around ankles, and wrists, binding them mid-step. He removed the mask. "Go back," he told them. "There is nothing for you here but truth." They fled without looking back. On the third morning, he arrived at the shrine. It was a crumbled ruin, built from red stones that bled rust. In its center stood a statue with no face, only a blank. Open space where eyes and a mouth should be. Zumo approached, heart pounding. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," he confessed aloud. "I don't know what this mask really wants. For me, I only know that I don't want to fail them. Any of them." The wind rose. Leaves danced in a spiral. The blank statue glowed faintly. A voice, neither male nor female, filled the air. "To carry light is to know darkness. To serve peace is to face war. You are not the end of the journey, Zumo. You are the beginning." A new vision surged into his mind of an ancient city in ruins, buried deep beneath a sand-covered cliff. Within it, another mask. Older, darker, twisted. Zumo fell to his knees. The voice faded. The air stilled. He stood slowly. His purpose had grown. This was no longer just about Nyoke. The true danger had not yet awakened. But it would Zumo return to Nyoka under a moonlit sky, the stars sharp and watchful. Though he walked with the same quiet steps, something in his bearing had changed. His eyes held distance now, not from the village, but from the earth itself, though he had glimpsed too much to ever rest easy again. The villagers welcomed him, but Zumo said little. Even Mama Nia sensed his silence was not for mourning, but for preparation. That night, he laid the mask before him and began to meditate. The vision of the sand-buried city haunted his every thought. The dark mask hidden there, the twin of his. Own was not asleep. He was waiting, and something or someone was trying to find it. Over the following days, Zumo pored over every scroll, carving, and tale the village had kept. Most spoke of the mask as if there were only one, a bina. A brittle leather-bound book, long forgotten in the elder's hut. He found what he had feared. A sketch, two masks. One radiant. One veiled in black, with cracks like lightning splitting across it. They were called the twin faces of balance. One gave power to heal, to protect, the other to destroy. Zumo single quotes as blood ran cold. The dark mask, forged not from divine blessing, but from corrupted pain, could amplify hatred, fear, and desire. And unlike his own, it did not choose. He knew then what must be done. He could not wait for it to rise. He had to find it. Forever, he left Nyoka before dawn, telling only Mama Nia. She nodded, her eyes misted. "You are not alone," she whispered, "even when you feel like it." He traveled east, where the desert began to swallow the land. The sun was merciless, the sands alive with memory and mirage. The closer he came to the cliffs from his vision, the more he felt the mask thrum with urgency. Done on the fourth night, he found it the crumbling ridge of red rock where sand had swallowed stone. The entrance to the ancient city was buried, but the mask showed him where to dig. Hours passed, his fingers bled, and then stone. Doorway. He descended into darkness. The city beneath was not entirely dead. Whispers lingered in its halls. Statues wept sand. Mosaics of battles long past decorated the walls, always showing two masked figures locked in endless struggle at the heart of the temple. The air thickened. There it lay. The dark mask, unlike his, it bore jagged teeth, a warped frown, and holes that bled shadow. It pulsed with a sickly red light, and standing before it was Dero. His face bore scars, but his eyes were wild with triumph. "I followed your dreams," Daro said. "Even when I was cast out, I watched. and I knew where the true power lay. You were chosen to serve, but I will rule." He reached for the mask. Zedmo shouted, "Don't." But it was too late. The dark mask flew into Darrow's hands and welcomed him. It did not resist. It bonded. The temple trembled. Stones cracked. Statues screamed. Zumo stepped back as Darrow rose, now encased in black smoke. Eyes glowing crimson. "You had your chance," Darrow growled. "Now I'll show you what real power looks like." Zumo placed his own mask on. The air stilled. Light met shadow. Balance was broken. The war of the masks had begun. Asterisk, asterisk. The ancient temple shook with the clash of opposing forces. Zumo, standing tall beneath the golden glow of his mask, felt the forest's wisdom course through him. Darrow, now possessed by the dark mask, hovered above the cracked floor, his aura spilling dread into every corner. They stared at each other, once boys from the same soil, now vessels of ancient power. "You never understood," Darrow snarled, his voice distorted. "You were content to serve. I was born to lead." Zumo stood his ground. "You weren't chosen because you seek power. Power cannot heal what pride has broken." With a scream, Darrow lunged. The first strike sent a wave of black flame through the temple. Zumo raised his hand, summoning a radiant shield that shimmered like sunlight through water. The fire splashed and sizzled, unable to pierce the light. Zumo countered, raising his hand and calling on the earth. Vines erupted from the cracked floor, wrapping around Darrow's legs, trying to hold him down. But the dark mask unleashed a pulse of energy, blasting the vines to ash. Statues shattered. Walls bled dust. The temple groaned under the weight of their battle. They moved like storm Zumo, a calm, steady wind. Darrow, a raging inferno. Each time Zumo struck, it was to restrain. To defend, Darrow, however, attacked with fury, unleashing bolts of shadow, conjuring illusions of fire and screams. He was not just fighting Zumo. He was fighting everything he had ever hated. Zumo knew he couldn't defeat Darrow with force alone. He closed his eyes, opened his heart, and let the mask guide him. Visions came of Darrow as a boy, left behind by a father who never returned, of years spent hungry, watching others eat, of dreams mocked. Hopes crushed, Zumo lowered his arms. "Darrow," he called gently. "You don't have to do this. You can still let go." Darrow hesitated, a flicker of doubt, but the dark mask roared to life. "T does not forgive." Darrow screamed and sent a final blast of red lightning. Zumo, instead of resisting, stepped forward and embraced it. The light of his mask flared blinding, pulsing, and then silence. A wave of pure energy exploded outward, hurling both of them back. When the dust settled, Zumo lay barely conscious. The golden mask cracked, but still glowing faintly. Darrow, maskless, slumped near the altar. The dark mask had fallen to the ground, flickering weakly dots. Zumo crawled to it. He lifted it gently. It shivered in his hands. He raised his own mask with one hand, the dark one in the other. "Balance must be restored," he whispered, with the last of his strength. He pressed the two together. Light met shadow. The masks hissed, cracked hand merged. A burst of golden black light engulfed the room. When it faded, nothing remained but dust-bound. Zumo collapsed. Above, the temple began to cave in. The temple's air was thick with the echoes of battle. Zumo and Darrow stood face to face, their masks blazing with opposing force, light and shadow warring within the ancient chamber. The ground beneath them trembled as if the very earth mourned the fate of its guardians. Darrow, now consumed by the dark mask's power, sneered. "You think your petty light can overcome me? I am the true master now." Zumo's voice was steady, filled with the weight of every burden he carried. "Power is nothing without purpose. The mask chose me because my heart is true. Yours is clouded by greed and pain." With a cry, Zumo called upon the mask's ancient magic. A brilliant wave of golden light burst forth, pushing back the creeping shadows that clung to Darrow's form. Star Mask shrieked, resisting but weakening. Darrow faltered, his rage turning to desperation. In a final fierce strike, he lunged toward Zumo, but the village boy was ready. Using his own strength and the mask's blessing, Zumo caught him, and with a surge of compassion, touched Darrow's scarred face. The light seeped into Darrow's heart, melting the hatred and pain. The dark mask cracked and shattered, fragments dissolving into dust. Darrow collapsed, exhausted but freed from the darkness. Zumo removed his mask, breathing heavily. The balance was restored, but at a cost. The ancient masks had chosen their master. Yes, but they had also tested the true meaning of power: to forgive, to heal, and to carry burdens not alone, but together. When Zumo returned to Nyoka, the villagers greeted him with awe and relief. Mama Naya smiled knowingly. "You were chosen," she said, "not for strength alone, but for the heart that carries the heaviest weight." And so, the tale of the mask that chose its master was passed down through generations, not as a story of power or conquest, but of humility, sacrifice, and the courage to face one's own darkness. Asterisk, asterisk, and so ends the story of Zumo, the boy who carried the weight of 1,000 sorrows and the light of 1,000 hopes. In a world where power often tempts the heart toward darkness, this ancient mask reminds us that true strength lies not in domination, but in kindness, sacrifice, and the courage to choose the right path even when it is the hardest. If you enjoyed this powerful African folktale, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more incredible stories from the heart of Africa. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a tale that inspires, teaches, and connects us all. Remember, the greatest mask we wear is our own heart. Keep it pure. Keep it brave. Asterisk, asterisk, thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment Zumo so that we can understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought, and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Goodbye, asterisk, asterisk.